Now, an Irish international turnaround specialist who made it abroad in the height of the recession has said that Dubliners in business are displaying the type of devastating paralysing effects that you would have if you were a stroke victim. What qualifies Marie O'Riordan to compare the state of Dublin businesses to such a serious medical condition? Well, she joins me now. Good evening, Marie. How are you?
Good evening to you, Lindsay, and thank you. And I wish that more of your listeners out there were actually on a shopping spree this evening, because it would actually get the country and get Dublin moving a little bit more.
Wouldn't it just? So tell me about this statement. You know, what actually qualifies you, Marie, to compare the state of the businesses in Dublin to this serious medical condition?
Well, I think that's a great opening question, Lindsay, and thank you for your professionalism, and well done with the Dublin's New Sunshine 106.8 and the studios. I hear they're fantastic.
They are. We're loving it here.
Lovely, like a shiny new pen, and with organisation, and that's what the country is lacking right now. And you're right, because someone could hear a statement or the headline that I have said, Dublin, people in business, I feel they are displaying the devastating, paralysed, stroke-like symptoms. So you might think that I've a fair old cheek to be saying something like that. But Lindsay, what people don't realise is that 8 years ago I survived a stroke. And at one point, I thought I had 9 hours to live, according to the doctors. The good thing is that I actually woke up the next day, and 4 days into the hospital stay, I emerged from the stroke. So I know what it's like. I've lost complete use of the entire right-hand side of my body, from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. And it was very frightening and devastating. And when you're paralysed like that in an entire side of your body, you realise what some business people are going through right now with fear in Dublin.
That's the way you've described that is quite scary, and if that's what businesses are actually feeling at the moment, you know, that it kind of puts it into perspective. So, you know, what's the solution?
Well, I think more structure is needed. You've been speaking on the show this evening, even in connection with the household charge. And Lindsay, I'll be honest with you, it pained me to pay that £100, not even from a money factor or financial factor, but from the principle of it. You know, I don't agree with it. I feel that it's an underhand way to be getting details about people in this country, but that's my own personal opinion. And it lacks organisation. There's no answers. There's very little information that we have to hand in connection with, you know, all of these water meters going forward. So I feel there's a huge lack of direction from the leaders in this country. And I feel that it's now up to the people who are making it in business to turn this country around right now.
How do we do that?
Well, that's the thing. I think, you know, a positive attitude right now. Okay, here we are in a situation in the capital right now where I'm speaking to business people on the coalface, on the ground, and some of them have actually told me that when it comes to the end of the month, they're having a choice of, are they going to spend money on the groceries for their family or pay their phone bills in the office? I mean, it's coming down to that right now. And when you hear stories like this and it's affecting the grocery shop for their family, there's something devastating going on in the country still, even, you know, a couple of years into this recession. So basically, I'm into systems and structure. And I was able to go into business in the height of the recession and build a business which now, a number of years later, is now operational, functional and profitable in 151 countries around the world. This afternoon during lunchtime, you don't know this, Lindsay, I haven't told you yet, but I got a phone call at lunchtime today, and I've just been confirmed to speak on the same stage about business as Lord Alan Sugar from BBC's The Apprentice, and that's going to be in June of this year. And I've just flown back. I was with Oprah Winfrey in America as an invited guest, featured on her live show, and also being featured in season 2 of her new show that emerged after the Oprah Winfrey show. So the experience that I have working with people on the ground around the world through a recession is this: you need structure and system. And even if we break it down and bring it back to basics, because Lindsay, there's something I'm noticing all over the country, and I'm not noticing it in other countries. And you walk into any shop, you walk into any cafe, any hotel, restaurant in Dublin right now, and I'll tell you what you're hearing. Everyone, even in our mentality, in our language patterns, for yes, we're saying every time you ask for something or ask how are you, whatever, everything is no problem. Everything is no problem, no problem, no problem. Well, I'll tell you, Lindsay, the problem with no problem is that's not the word yes. It should be yes, absolutely, certainty. We need a lot more positivity even in our language in business, because I've been able to prove that even when business positive language patterns, they've been able to track an increase in business from that day, especially in the likes of hotels. So everywhere we go, the problem with no problem is, Lindsay, that's a double negative. And there's so much negativity around the country right now. We need to dig ourselves out of that hole.
But, you know, we spoke earlier about these household charges, about the proposed water meters and the water charges that are going to come into effect at the end of 2014. And, you know, there's so much more going on. And I know that sometimes it sounds incredibly negative. So how do we turn these positives into these negatives into positives? How do we lift our mood and make these changes happen?
The one thing I would say to people in Ireland, Lindsay, and I've spoken around the world on this topic, and I'm very proud to be Irish, but the one thing I'm not proud about in Ireland is the fact that I don't feel it's actually our fault. We can take responsibility and stand up and take responsibility for our own actions, but I feel there's a generational effect going on here, Lindsay. Lindsay, your listeners may not know this, but I actually own a charity that's an honorary award-winning philanthropic organisation. And I don't fundraise or ask people for money. I actually fund it myself. So in the Middle East in December, I was awarded the honorary award. So I've been volunteering abroad since I was 16 years of age. And I've worked in sub-Saharan Africa, the slums of Calcutta, you name it, I've done it, and I've worked in the dirt with the people to help them out of it. And that's why I'm not afraid to get down and dirty with the Irish to get them out of the situation right now. But what I've noticed is, you know, even in sub-Saharan Africa, and I've worked in famine countries over there, we can't forget, Lindsay, Ireland is the product of a famine. Ireland was also a famine country. It's almost like it's in our DNA that we have this lack mentality going down the generations. Do you know what I mean? And I'll give you an example. I did this to prove a point for an international television station that I was on a couple of days ago. And while I was in Ireland, I travelled extensively. While I was in Ireland, in February and March of this year, while I was in Dublin city centre, in February, just walking on the streets for the couple of days I was in Ireland, and also in March, I tracked this for the TV station. I picked up €30 in February and another €30 in March of small coins on the streets.
Really?
So, yes, this is actual fact. And I actually, you know, to prove a point, I put it into my stock market accounts because I trade on the New York Stock Exchange and the Chicago Board of Options. Why? Because if you don't appreciate a 1-cent coin on the street, you're not going to appreciate anything else. So I think there's a huge mentality in Ireland about wealth, about money, and people are dropping coins on the street, and I was able to prove this, and they're not even picking them up. So if they're not valuing a 1-cent coin, they're not going to value money, and that's a big part of the mentality in this country.
That's incredible. You're going to be speaking at the Carlton House Hotel, I believe, in May, is it?
Yes, correct. I have now worked in 151 countries in a recession. I've been able to build a business around the world and work with some of the most influential people out there. And I don't need to name drop, Lindsay, you know, and I'm not going to do that to you now, but everyone from Hollywood actors...
I'll tell you the truth now. I haven't spoken to too many people who've been interviewed by Oprah Winfrey, and I think you have every right and you have every entitlement to drop her name, or even Alan Sugar. You know, I mean, you feel free to drop names.
Well, okay. I like associating with people who are successful. Last July, I went out on a limb and I was able to present an award to Richard Branson. And I presented him with my Businesses Award for Entrepreneurialism. So these are the types of people I like to associate with, and that's why I get the call this afternoon when it comes to speaking on stage and talking about successful businesses with the likes of Lord Alan Sugar. And I mean, Lindsay, you know, I was not born with a silver spoon. I'll be very honest with you. I learned the hard way. I found school very difficult, even when I was younger. I know that the mocks and the results, and parents in Dublin are very concerned about a lot of their children and their teenagers right now. And how do you think I felt, Lindsay, when I did my Leaving Cert mocks and I failed every subject? I got 7 fails in the mocks.
That's incredible.
And I went on,
you look at some of the most successful business people in the world, and they weren't scholars.
Exactly. Well, that's what they tell me. And actually, Richard Branson is one of the world's most famous dyslexics. Mm-hmm. And while I don't live with dyslexia, and I'm very honoured that I actually have a fairly good use of the English language, and I'm very, very proud of that, but it didn't come easily. I did actually fail honours English in the Leaving Cert. So my option options were restricted when I was a teenager, and going forward, I just had to, I feel, work harder than anyone else to get ahead, because I don't have a degree, yet I feel I have a qualification, Lindsay, in the University of Life.
Okay.
So there are people, there's actually an organisation, a thriving Irish business right now, would you believe it, called SHMOT. And SHMOT is the Irish word for discipline, because that's what I feel the country and leaders are lacking right now. And SHMOT have invited me to speak on the 3rd of May at the Carlton Hotel in Blanchardstown. And I also set up a bit of a website, running off my own website, so that people can attend. And it's like this, and Lindsay, it's like this, financially, I'm not gaining out of this. I am doing this so people can get Ireland and Dublin moving once again. I won't even talk to you about my usual fee when I work at that level. I have made this so affordable for people right now who are worried about their business, that actually get some real training and be able to go home and have a thriving business. And I've been able to prove my results in 5 working days. In fact, I just worked with an Irish business, and they were able to prove that the tactics and the 105 steps that I implemented in their business in Ireland actually worked in 4 days flat. And it's like this, you know, you can have an Alan Sugar calling you, but Alan Sugar wasn't going to call me unless I was getting results. So I like to get results for people, Lindsay.
What's the website there, Marie?
Yes, they want to check it out. It's idealbusinessintelligence.com/SMOT.
Okay.
I'll give you that again. Idealbusinessintelligence.com. We need a bit of smarts when it comes to business. /SMOT, SMACHT, and people can register there. And I'd be delighted to teach them and tell them the ins and outs of what people out there don't even want them to know. There is a way you can build a business the right way or the wrong way, and I'm only interested in the right way.
Okay, well listen, it's been a pleasure to talk to you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you, Lindsay.
Take care, Marie. Good evening. That is Maria Reardon, as featured on Oprah's Life Class, CNN, Forbes, The Washington Post, ABC, Fox, US Today, and so many more. Okay, Dublin is talking. Lindsay Dolan with you till 8.
Dublin's Talking with Lindsay Dolan.